start of 2025, I was put on 5 weeks of stress leave. And by the time I came back, I had been moved under this manager. That was not because of my stress leave. That was planned. Everyone got moved. And I ended up under him. And that's kind of been vital to me getting a lot better in the last year. Like, he is one of those managers, like my favorite kind, that lets me do my job however I want to, at whatever time I want to. But if I need him for something, like if I don't know how to do something, he's there to help me. But it also gave me, it just took so much stress away from me, and that gave me more time to focus on getting like my ADHD diagnosis sorted out, and ultimately medication, and just like feeling better. So I am very upset that he's leaving. I think it's great for him. It's a great career move for him. I think at this point we're all kind of in that boat where we want to do something about our jobs. But the job market is very tough out there, so it might be a good thing for me in the future, maybe even in the near future, if he can bring me over. But that is A, not a guarantee that he can do that, and B, it's a very small company, and I have to kind of weigh benefits versus negatives, I guess. I've been with the same company for 20 years. It's a huge multinational company. Not really enjoying it anymore, but it's a job, and it's a well-paying job, and that is something I need to really consider, because when you've got a mortgage and a car loan, all of that is based on your current salary. If you suddenly get a job, I would never take a job when I already have one that pays less. But if something were to happen and I need to take a job where I make significantly less, I may not be able to continue making my mortgage payments and paying my bills and stuff like that. So, going to a small company that is not like on the stock market, that depends on like private investors and stuff like that, I do find that a risk. But it's a really like solid company, and I do think if I go there, by the time I do, they will most likely be on the stock market, because they've kind of applied for going there. But either way, not the point. I was really upset last week, and it just had such a knock-on effect on everything I did. It is crazy how one bad thing that happens in your life ruins everything else. So I have a whiteboard with a weekly planner. I'm actually planning on doing a video soon with all my favorite items that are not makeup and skincare, and that whiteboard is definitely on it. I think it would help a lot of people watching me that have ADHD, but even people without. It's just a really great tool. Since I got it about 2 months ago, I've never had a full day that was blank. And the Tuesday he has to Wednesday, didn't really have a choice. You need food and you need to pick up your prescriptions on time. But then Thursday had one task on it, Friday had one task on it. Like, it was such a sad week. And I spent the whole weekend in bed just not doing anything. Actually, I believe on Saturday I went to the grocery store, but I didn't really do much. So on Sunday on Sunday evening I was like, okay, you need to get out of this funk. It's been a week. You need to go back to lifing next week. Okay, this is not the end of the world. Plus, you can't worry about who is now going to become, like, who's going to replace him, because you have no control over that decision. Like, you have zero say. They're not going to ask your opinion. You have zero say in who they hire. So, until you know who it is, then you can start worrying if you have to. But until then, just don't worry about it. But all the emotions from the week really came together on Sunday. I had a very anxious day on Sunday. Not like high anxiety, but a whole day of just a level of anxiety. And everything I did, or everything I tried to do, I just couldn't get going, or I couldn't continue it. It's like my concerta was just not up against the task of my anxiety going, I'm not in the mood for this today. So I couldn't do anything. I was actually planning on recording. I thought, you know what, if you really aren't up for recording like a bigger video, just sit down, do a whisper ramble, talk about what's going on this week. But I couldn't even muster that on Sunday, or quite frankly, this week so far. Today's Wednesday. I did actually go out and do things on Monday. I felt pretty back to normal on Monday. Yesterday I did absolutely nothing, but that was because I had a big task planned that I realized I could not do by myself. So I texted a friend. He's coming over in 2 weeks and helping me with that. I'm trying to change rooms. So the master bedroom is really only the master bedroom because it's got an ensuite bathroom attached to it. But it's at the front of the house with 2 giant floor-to-ceiling windows that are east facing and south facing. So in the summer, that room is ridiculous. I will wake up at 9, just pure sweating, get up and open the windows, and I'll burn my hand on the handle of the window because the inside of the windows get so hot. I have never experienced that before, and this is a new build. These windows are really thick. They're supposed to be super well insulated. I don't know why so much heat is coming through to the inside, but everyone in the estate has the same problem. This bedroom where I've been filming for the last few months is the big spare bedroom. I have a small one too that kind of has my office in it that I don't really use. This is the big spare bedroom, and it's at the back of my house, which is north facing, so there is no point at any time of day where the sun hits this room. It also has one pretty big window, but not floor to ceiling. And I always like working from here because I can work from my bed all day, and with the curtains and blinds open, nobody can see me here because the window's Yeah, 17 years. Um, I always slept on mattresses that were from the rental property. And I thought to myself, now that I'm buying my own bed, I'm going to invest in a really good mattress that's going to help with all my neck and back problems, because I really needed that. And this mattress cost €400. It was the cheapest the store had, because it was only meant to be slept on once, maybe twice a year when I get visitors, and only for a few days. My parents sleep on it for about 10 days, and it's absolutely fine for that. It's not fine for months. I've been sleeping on it for months, and my muscles are really starting to hurt. So I have decided, after thinking, and honestly, if I cut off the ensuite bathroom, the master bedroom is actually smaller than this bedroom. So I have decided that I'm just gonna make this my main bedroom, because I spend more time here. I never wake up having to get up and move to another bedroom to sleep for a few more hours. I am trying to get up earlier and earlier and become a morning person, but it doesn't change the fact that that bedroom in the summer is still 24 degrees by the time I want to go back to sleep, and this bedroom is like 21, so makes a huge difference. I just can't. I think I've slept there maybe 2 months out of the last year, and mostly been in here, and it's not good for my muscles. So my friend is coming over next weekend, not the coming weekend, but the one after that, and he's gonna help me move not only the mattresses but the bed bases. I have divan bases for both, but the one in the master bedroom is just nicer. It also has a really nice headboard. This one doesn't have one at all. So I'm just gonna, move rooms. But yeah, that was my one task for Tuesday this week, and I realized I couldn't do it by myself. But today I went to my GP, put some basic makeup on. It looks like a lot, but it isn't. I'm like just wearing a bit of skin tint and some bronzer and blush. My GP is also interesting. I'll get to that later, because that wasn't part of the rough week last week. The other thing that kind of made last week rough was Ireland was very heavily protesting the high fuel prices, particularly farmers and truckers who are most affected by it for their business. They have to run their transportation on it, and they can't run their business without their transportation. Like a farmer's crops would completely wilt if he doesn't have a tractor. So there was a lot of unrest in the country, which is very unlike Ireland. The Irish are not a protesting folk. And every day, every motorway in the country would get blocked off. Even just in Galway, the major streets would all be blocked off by tractors and trucks. And I personally am fortunate enough that I'm not really affected by it. I have a heat pump which runs on electricity. I have an electric car with a charger at home, so I'm not reliant on fuel. But the petrol stations it was almost their turn, and an employee came out of the store and changed the price from €2.14 per liter to €2.17 per liter. Like, that is price gouging at its finest, isn't it? You know, there's a lot of people queuing for an already ridiculously expensive product, and you decide, oh, I can make a lot of money off this, I'm just gonna pocket it. I can't say that I fully blame them, but at the same time, people are financially really struggling with this, and you're taking advantage of that. I think the main thing that you should know, because I don't think everyone knows this, is that at least 70% of houses, if not more, I don't know, like all the newer builds, obviously not, but every house that was built, I want to say before 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, so at least 70% of houses in Ireland are still heated on kerosene oil. Like in my previous house that I was renting, I had a big oil tank in my back garden, and every winter I would order 300 liters of oil, and that would be enough for me because I lived alone. I only heated my living room and my kitchen. I don't like warm upstairs. But I turned off my heating because on principle, I don't want to heat my house between April 1st and September 30th. Like, I feel like after March and before October 1st, no one should have to switch on their heating. But the weather's been so crap the last few weeks that my house is literally 18 degrees, which is 64.4 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really cold. So I have to walk around, like I'm wearing a sweater, but I'm really cold right now. Sitting here recording this, I have to walk around everywhere with a bathrobe over my clothes. I also have to wear socks everywhere because I have underfloor heating. So in the winter, I don't wear socks. I have carpet upstairs. My floor downstairs is warm and toasty. I don't even notice it anymore that I'm not wearing socks. But I came downstairs a few weeks ago after switching off my heating to get something in the kitchen, and I was like, holy crap, my floor is really cold. I can no longer walk around barefoot, like socks all the way. So yeah, I don't have my heating on anymore. I'm seriously contemplating switching it back on because it's still only 18 degrees. It hasn't warmed up in the last few weeks, but it's mid-April, like, really. However, if you have a family with especially small kids, you need a warm house. Also, the oil doesn't just heat up, isn't just for the heating, it also heats up your water. You have what we call the immersion. That's always a joke in Ireland. Like, don't forget to switch off the immersion. It's an electric, well, it's a button you put on, and it warms up your water via electricity. But it's really expensive. So you typically, if you want to take like a bath, you would warm it up an hour before you take your bath, and you would switch it off right after your bath so that you don't have it on for a really long time. If you have no oil to heat your water, even if your heating's already off for the house, you would need to, with a family, you would need to have your immersion on 24/7, and that is very expensive. So you can't win at the moment. Everything is very expensive, and I know that's everywhere in the world. That's not just us. But yeah, a lot of petrol stations ran out after everyone awarded petrol and diesel. Diesel is the most expensive. Because the protesters were actively blocking oil trucks from making deliveries. The government also stupidly, I don't know why they made this announcement, said that they only had a 3-month supply of oil left. I'm like, great. Way to create panic across people in the country, because that's why they're now hoarding petrol. And every petrol station runs out because you're telling them we only have a 3-month supply left. We don't need to know that, okay? We need to know that when we're getting like 2 weeks out of our supply. But the chances are, and maybe I'm optimistic, chances are that in 3 months' time we'll have gotten deliveries by then. So, like, I didn't think there was any need to announce that. But yeah, there was a lot of unrest. There was also really, luckily, I was so down in the dumps last week that I didn't really want to go anywhere. But I also wouldn't have been able to go anywhere if I wanted to, not past my own, like, 1 mile radius bubble, because the major roads into town were blocked. Town was completely, like, full of protesters, so I wouldn't have gone in. So yeah, that was kind of a stressful time. It seems to be over now. The government have lowered the price of petrol and diesel by 10 cents per liter each. That is nowhere near enough according to the population, because they wanted them to actually remove the what is it called, excise duties, because they make up about half, I think they make up 53% of the petrol price. So they wanted the government to temporarily get rid of those to lower it back to an acceptable price. 10 cents per liter is a lot, I think, but your petrol prices are still at like €1.90 per liter, which is insane. I mean, someone said that I used to pay €300 for a tank of 300 liters of oil, and that never really changed. And someone said 6 months ago I filled up my tank with 300 liters. By the way, these tanks are like 900 to 1200 liters depending on how big one you get. If you have a whole family, you would typically fill it up with probably 900 liters of oil. 300 just lasted me by myself for the winter. But there was someone who said I filled my tank up 6 months ago with 300 liters of oil for €300, and I wanted to fill it up yesterday for 300 liters, and it would cost me €600, twice the price. But €600 for 300 liters of oil, I would never have paid that on principle. I would have just lived in my house with 3 bathrobes on and 2 hot water bottles. I wouldn't have. But if you have a family, that's not an option. So it's been just very restless, I think that's a better word, restless in the country, with a lot of solidarity from the people, don't get me wrong. It's not necessary, but the people are just struggling financially, as everywhere is. But that also all happened last week. So yeah, that's why there was just no video on Sunday. I couldn't find the motivation to do anything, and I took my Concerta every day. But if you are not in the mood to do anything, the Concerta isn't gonna give you ideas to do something. I was not in the mood, and I think that's okay. You can still have weeks where it's just not your week, but it is if you don't know, I don't actually know if I've ever talked about this, if anyone knows this. I have chronic migraines. Chronic is diagnosed as more than 10 times a month. I have them 3 times a week on average, so a good more than 10 times a month. Have really my whole life, I think. I mean, in my teenage years, I felt pretty. I had a headache at the end of every week in high school, and then in college, I started getting really weird headaches, like always behind my eye, and then it would pull over one side of my head. And I had surgery on my nose when I was 16, well, turning 17. And I thought maybe something went wrong internally, and that was causing me, because I always felt like it was a sinus headache. So I had a CT scan and everything done of my head, and that all came back clear. They were like, because I had it done at a completely different hospital than where I had my surgery, so it was, they were not affiliated with each other at all. Sorry, my legs are falling asleep. And they said that the surgery was done really well and there was no problem with that. So I eventually went to my GP and was like, I have a brain tumor. Like, I know they didn't see anything on the CT scan, but they only took it from the front of my head. I said, I have really weird headaches. They are not normal headaches. And he looked at me, like my childhood GP knew me really well, and he looked at me quite amused and went, one side of your head. And I said, yes, that's gotta be a brain tumor, right? And he said, no, you have migraines. He said migraines are typically just on one side of your head. He said, your mom has them. They're often genetic. Look no further. So, okay, back then I had them like once every 2 weeks, but when I moved to Ireland, I started getting them 2 or 3 times a week. The weather greatly affects my migraines. This is not the best country for me to live for my migraines, but you know, been here 20 years. Kind of hard for me to leave now. But yeah, I've had them chronically for well over 20 years, and my mom did as well. Actually, I think about half the women in my family have chronic migraines. So, I take medication for them that still to this day works really well. My childhood GP, I don't think is alive anymore, but at this point, but the GP that took over his practice, I've been going to ever since. And she's been prescribing my migraine medication since my 20s, and it still, she gives me a year's supply that for a long time I didn't even all need. But in the last couple of years, I've gotten way more migraines, and I've gone through phases of like months where I got one every day. And so last year I ran out of medication by Christmas, and I only got it in June. Like, it was supposed to last me another 6 months, and like I said, I often didn't even take all of what she prescribed me. I would like just build up the supply, so I had more than a year's supply, and I used it all up in 6 months. And I emailed my Belgian GP and said, hey, my parents are coming over to my house for Christmas this year. Could you send them a prescription for 2 more boxes. And she said, how often are you taking them? And I said, for the last few months, every day. And she said, oh, you can't take them that much. She said, this medication is not meant to be taken more than 10 times a month. And I said, yeah, I'm aware. I've been taking it for a long time. But I've been having migraines every day. I don't know where they're coming from. And I can't function without the medication. So she said, okay, I'll give you 2 more, but we need to discuss this when you come back to see me in June. And I was like, okay. I don't think we actually discussed it. She just prescribed me another year's supply. And again, a month ago, I pretty much ran out. I had like 5 tablets left, so I was like, okay, you're gonna have to bite the bullet and talk to your GP here, because my GP here has me on a couple of prescriptions, but doesn't know my history with migraines, because that is not something that she has ever treated me for. So I had the whole history and what I'm taking, how long I've been taking it, or how often I take it, and that I have been having them daily for a while now. And I did some research online, and I think it may be caused by my PPI, which is my stomach medication, the pantoprazole I've been taking. And she said that's highly possible, because headaches, and if you're prone to migraines are a very common side effect of that medication. I said, yeah, it's weird. Like, I take the medication in the morning. It seems to work fine throughout the day, but as soon as I have dinner, about an hour after I've eaten a whole meal, I get an insane starving feeling, which gives me what feels like a hunger headache, but it's nothing clears it except for my migraine medication. And migraine medication is not a painkiller. It works on your blood vessels. So I've always been told, if it's not a migraine, your migraine medication won't work. And it always works. I'm like, so it is a migraine. But it seems to be caused by my stomach, because, and it's not normal that my stomach gets this feeling every day and has for months, or has even longer than that. So I said, I kind of want to get off this medication. I know this medication comes with its own dangers if you're on it for too long, and I really don't think it's doing much. So she said, okay, we'll taper off it. She put me on a lower dose, told me to take it, you know, just like every day for a week, and then every 2 days for a week, and then, you know, taper off that way. But I had already cut my dose in half before, like 2 weeks before I went to see her, so I went straight into every other day, and then every 2 days. And after a week and a half, I was like, well, what are you gonna do with every 3 days? You'd be taking it once a week next week. You might as well just stop. So I've been off them now for 2.5 weeks. She recommended I pound the Gaviscon, because I would probably get a lot of rebound reflux. No, I barely had to take any Gaviscon. I don't think reflux, I never actually had reflux. I just had a lot of gas and burping. So they called it silent reflux, but like no one ever really diagnosed me properly. So I think I've been on these PPIs for like 3.5 years, and they just made my stomach worse rather than better, because I've been off them now for 2.5 weeks. I have had no more insane hunger feelings, no more headaches coming from my stomach. My digestion is also gradually improving a lot. This week particularly, I noticed that I could eat a lot better. I lost 4 kilos in the last 2 months, and I did not have them to lose. So I am now said that sorts itself out. She said I wouldn't focus on gaining, I would just focus on reaching your calorie intake for the day so that you maintain your weight. The weight gain will eventually come, but don't force yourself too fast. Just go back to eating normal, and eventually you'll go on vacation somewhere, overindulge for a couple of days, and the pounds will back on anyway. So she said, don't worry about that. That will be okay. But she did refer me for a scope. If you've been with me long enough, you'll know that I've been complaining about digestive issues since I started this channel. I've had them for like 11 years. Very, very linked to my anxiety, but with my anxiety practically being gone now, my digestive issues are a lot better, but it never fully went back to normal. So, I was referred for a scope in 2020, but it got canceled due to COVID, and I didn't reschedule it initially because for the first 3 years I didn't want to set foot in a hospital during COVID, and then I just forgot about it, to be honest. So she referred me. She was like, look, for someone who's had the problems you've had for so long, you are a prime candidate for a scope. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, but I'm always, I think a part of the reason I never rescheduled is because I'm afraid that they'll find something really bad. And she said, and she looked at me and went, not to sound morbid, but if it was something really bad, you'd be dead by now. She said, because you've had it for 11 years. She said it could be something really simple, like a bacterial overgrowth that they can solve with medication. It could also be nothing, and just that you have a very strong brain-gut connection, or just an that your stomach is really sensitive to certain foods or can't process certain foods. And I was like, yeah, but I had a food test done, like an allergy test done, and it really didn't come back with much. And she was like, yeah, but when they do a scope, they'll take a biopsy of your stomach and they'll be able to test way more accurate whether you have celiac disease. I was like, on my food intolerance test, I wasn't even intolerant to gluten, let alone full-blown celiac. And she was like, yeah, but that's a blood test. Blood tests can give false positives, or false negatives rather. She said a biopsy will be more accurate. I also got tested for H. pylori years ago through a stool sample. But again, she said a biopsy of your stomach will definitively be able to say whether you have H. pylori or not. She said, I am not at all worried it's going to be something bad. She said, but it could be a number of things, and it could also be nothing. But we're going to have to get a scope done. And she also referred me to the ENT because I was referred a year ago, and they never got back to me, and I contacted them, and they were quite rude. Like the assistant was like, I told her that I got referred a year ago, but I never heard back. And she was like, okay, what's your name? And obviously, and I have a really complicated last name, so I started spelling it, and she went, oh, okay. And she went, oh, stop. Just send me a text on this number with all your details, and I'll get back to you. And she never did. So I asked my GP if she could just cancel the pending referral in the system and send a new one in, and maybe that'll jog them to contact me, which she did. But she said ENT typically takes a long time. She said it could be months before they get back to you, but I do expect you to hear from the scope soon. I said, yeah, I was kind of expecting to hear from them, preferably both of them, in the 4 weeks between our 2 appointments, but I haven't heard from anyone yet. feels so much better. Migraines are back to my normal 3 a week and back to like the way they used to be, which is waking up with them and being very clearly able to tell, oh, that's a migraine. Because for months, I would have a migraine every day, but it would present as a different type of head pain, and it took me hours often to figure out that it was a migraine. I would take different kinds of painkillers that sometimes worked, but then only worked for 2 hours, and you're not allowed to take them more than every 4 hours. And then after 3 hours, I'd be like, yeah, this is getting way too painful. I can't wait another hour. This is clearly a migraine, and I'd have to take that. I took the medication every day. I always tried other things in the hope that it was something else, knowing deep down that it wasn't, because it never has been. So, but she was fine with prescribing me. I went again through the year supply of my Belgian GP, so she was fine with prescribing me like a 6-month supply. Because I'm going back to Belgium a little later this year. It'll be like end of July, early August. I said that's really all I needed for like 4 months, but in Ireland everything gets prescribed for 6 months, so I should have enough, and then I can go back to asking my GP in Belgium, because in Belgium it's just the difference is huge. Like in Ireland, my migraine medication comes in boxes of 6, and they have more generic brands than they used to. I mean, the one I got now was a different generic brand than 20 years ago when I tried to get them here. But because there's so few generic brands, they cost €36 for 6 tablets. In Belgium, I get a box of 24 tablets for €28. So regardless of the fact that I don't get anything back from them, I wouldn't in Ireland either. My health insurance told me last year that they don't cover prescription medications, and I'd been saving my receipts for like 3 years, and I didn't know that. So yeah, it's just way cheaper in Belgium, but there are things like my beta blocker and my Concerta and yeah, those really are the only things that I prefer to get here, because those are medications that if you do, that I'm more likely to have side effects from at one point than the migraine medication, because I've been on that for 20 years. So I'd rather get that from my GP here. And she, yeah, I don't know. I lost my train of thought, but I am on the drug payment scheme. For anyone living in Ireland that was going to recommend that, I applied for it last month. My pharmacist actually recommended it to me. He was like, have you ever heard of it? I said no. And he was like, if your prescription medications go over €80 a month, the drug payment scheme pays for it. And I discovered, because I never pay attention to these things, I just pay and leave. I know I'm very fortunate I can do that. I used to have to count every penny I spent on everything, but I'm not in that position anymore, so I tend to just pay and walk out. It turns out my Concerta alone costs €80 a month. So essentially I'm getting all my other prescription medications for free, because the drug payment scheme covers everything that goes above the I I had a rough week last week, but I also had some. Oh yeah, one last thing that I wanted to talk about, but I'm gonna try to keep that short because I kind of think I know what the outcome will be. I talked about the fact that I had planned a trip to New York at the end of May, but I was kind of waiting out the state of the world, and the state of the world is probably at its worst so far this year. So a lot of my neighbors have been getting solar panels installed, and all use the same company. They're apparently great. So I reached out to them for a quote. They're sending someone over either this week or early next week. I haven't gotten it yet, but I was thinking of canceling my New York trip and putting the money towards solar panels instead. It would, save me money over time. But I have already booked my flights. My hotel is fully refundable. I don't think my hop-on, hop-off ticket is. I also wasn't planning on booking it that early. I asked the customer service agent a question about a route that they used to do that seemed to be missing now. And she roped me into just buying the ticket. She's like, I can offer you a discount if you want to buy it now. And I just got so caught up in it. I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead, do it. And realized that her discount was the exact same price as it would have been on the app if I had just bought it myself. And I was not going to do that until like 2 weeks before I left. It doesn't look like that's refundable, but I'm still going to try to get it back. But my flights are not refundable. However, I can move them for free. But I tried to see online how much that would cost. I can move them for free, as in I don't have to pay admin costs. You always do an economy flights, but I booked business class flights, and then you can move them for free, but you do have to pay the price difference if the new flights are more expensive. So I was kind of trying to figure out, I was going to move my flights essentially to Orlando because I haven't booked those yet. That's a non-negotiable for me. I'm still going to go there at the end of this year. But I purposely didn't book those flights because I was thinking if I don't do New York, I can move my New York flights to Orlando. Turns out I can't do that. I tried online, but it would let me change the dates, and it also allowed me to change the destination, not the origin airport, which also would need to be changed. Because New York, I would fly from Shannon. They don't fly direct to Orlando from Shannon, only from Dublin. But I just tried. I could type into the destination field a new destination, so I tried that, and I clicked next, and it said you can't do that online. Call our customer service number, which I haven't done yet. I'm gonna wait for the solar panel quote to see how much that is, and then I'm gonna make a decision and probably try to get those flights moved and just do New York some other, maybe a couple of years into the future type thing. But I have a feeling that the customer service agent is going to tell me that I can only move dates and not destinations. So I'm pretty sure I'm still going to go to New York and move getting solar panels installed out to next year because I can't do both. Watch this space. I'm sure I'll do another Whisper Ramble video when everything, like when I've had my scope done. She kind of expects the scope appointment to come through pretty fast. I remember last time I was referred for scope, I got the appointment scheduled for like I think 3 or 4 months into the future, but she has a suspicion but she thinks I should be able to get it within a few weeks, which I don't really know if that's true. But anyway, if all of that happens before the New York trip, I will update you guys. If the scope hasn't happened yet, I will still make an update video about whether I'm getting solar panels or whether I'm going to New York. I don't know yet. Every now and then it's nice to just sit down and do these whisper ramble videos because I sometimes need to just get my feelings off my chest, and you guys are the best ones to do that too. I can't always complain to my friends. I don't always have, I understand my problems seem like peanuts compared to people with kids, and they tell me that all the time. That my problems are really not that big, and they're not. I know that. I have first world problems. If John, if you're watching, I know I have first world problems, but he points it out to me every time I complain about something. He's like, that's such a first world problem to complain about. And I'm like, well, guess what? I live in the first world. So do you. Every problem you have is a first world problem too. So let me moan for a while, please. It's not like I do it that often, but anyway. End of video. I need to stop rambling. Thank you for listening to my woes. I will keep you updated on how the scope goes. The ENT stuff is because I haven't been able to breathe through my left nostril in years. And also for the past year or so, I've been having a constant runny nose, like constantly, and I don't even feel it. It just drips out, and I'm like, oh, there we go. I thought it was allergies at first, but it's not just happening during allergy season. It happens all year round. So, and I wonder if sometimes my migraines are actually sinus headaches. I definitely notice when I bend over to pick something up that I always feel a huge pressure in my face. So that should be normally my sinuses. So I think I might have chronic sinusitis